Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel. Let's have a look at paint and physical paint and how it figures out how to kind of deform and stuff. So first thing to note is that the starting point of a stroke is kind of anchored. So if I now make this physical and move it around, then it's flopping around from that point. And even if I grab it from the top, it's still, the bottom point is kind of locked to the actual painting object, and the rest of it can flop about. This is a bit different if you have it surface snapped. If I have surface snap on and I just draw a line, it doesn't actually have to be snapped to a sculpt or anything, but it will normally behave just as normal, as in the start of the stroke is where it's at. But then when you make other surface snapped lines like this, and I'll make some like upright ones, and then I move it around, then it moves around almost like it's a 2D flag, and it uses the first stroke as the basis for how it deforms everything, and everything kind of follows what this one is doing. So if these were down here, this moves way less, so this will move way less. And if I have one in the middle, this one will move a middle amount because this fleck is kind of tilting only slightly when it's moving. So now it's moving a middling amount, whereas this one is going, whoa, it's going all over the place. If I make some strokes in here now, let's delete some, make some room. If I make some strokes now from the top down and make sure surface snap is off, then these will behave like they're separate things like this did. So those are moving with the paint object, and you can see if you watch just that, if I move that there, you can see the anchor of that and the anchor of that are moving at the same rate, because they're both locked to the painting object, because these don't have the surface snap flag on them, kind of telling dreams how to treat this as a surface snap thing. So they aren't moving with the first line. But if we make the same things with surface snapped on, moving down again, so the root is still at the top, then it will still move with the that first stroke that we put down, because these ones are surface snapped, and that's the only difference. It still uses this as the original first stroke. So if I change that angle to something like that, and I can move around like that, you can see they're still following how this is oriented, but it's a lot different to how it was moving before. And I could even make it go the other way around. And now the bottom stuff is wobbling around instead of the top. One last thing is, if there are other non-surface snapped strokes with their origin point, their starting point, closer to these surface snap strokes than the starting point of the first stroke, I know this is confusing, then it will use those instead, like how those are being deformed. They'll be influenced by them. So I'll make a surface snapped line going like that, right to left. So this is the origin point there. I'll put a dot next to it, and that won't really move or anything, so I'll just put a dot. And then left to right, and I'll put a dot there. So this one will be affected by this, and then we put a non-surface snapped one, and it will kind of mess with this one because it will be starting closer to its starting point. I'll have that going down and see what that does. So you can see now this one almost looks like it's attached to this, which isn't surface snapped at all, because it's closer to this one's starting point. And then this other one, this starting point is closer to that than that, so it's following that instead, something like that. So if you're making something you want to behave like a flag, like these other things, but then one of them is behaving strangely, then you've probably got a non-surface snap stroke in there somewhere, and now it's all going to follow this original one. And it's always going to be the first, the oldest stroke. So if I delete this, one of the other ones will be the oldest and affect it. So I'm guessing it's like one down here. See, that one looks normal and everything else is like absolutely wild. These ones aren't being affected by this because they are off the side of this. You can imagine like a big 2D grid paper, and it's being deformed by this stroke. And these squares over here are getting dragged over here, and squares down here are getting dragged over here as it moves up and down. But over here, nothing's being affected because they're off the end of this grid paper. So everything beyond that first fleck over this side doesn't care what's going on. Let's actually see what's, if I attach at both ends, it also happens the same way. If I get some of these and put them over here, some in the middle, so this one isn't affected because that's locked, this one isn't affected because that's locked, and then these are affected because the flecks in the middle are wobbling around. If I go with some wind, let's turn that off, whoa, and do it like, and it even works for wind and stuff, so it gets a bit weird if everything's spread out like this, but if it was like lots of lines next to each other like a real flag, then it could look more realistic. Some wind, there we go. So that's how you can get like a nice looking flag wave going on, and it kind of feels like they're all perfectly in sync, apart from the first stroke, which tends to, that's the one that's properly simulated. Everything else is kind of following, so everything else follows perfectly, but then the first one can go a little bit out of sync and look a bit weird. Oh yeah, so if I rotate one of these like that and put it on the top again, it'll still match it. It's kind of looking a bit weird, but it's matching the physical simulation still because it's all coming from that bottom one. You tint with the volume brush. Oh, there we go. And then you can like draw a face in here or something by tinting the individual flecks. Oh, it's making me a bit dizzy with that animation going on. But now that whole thing is waving like a flag. But because of how this works, you can just surface snap that one stroke, and now everything else, you can do whatever you like with it. So I could just draw a face. Let's see what that does now. Moment of truth. Hey, it's kind of working. And if it was like waving like that, it would look more suitable. And that works. And that's without having to like, with this method you kind of get these a weird look to it a bit. But this method you get a different weird look to it. So, but the actual design will look proper and crisp. So that's pretty cool once you know just like how this stuff really works and that. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.